look at the second kind of pattern that can be mined. We're looking at something called as frequent patterns. So what's a frequent pattern? A pattern that occurs commonly in the data is called as a frequent pattern. To help us understand this better, it's a pretty straightforward definition, but there is something more to it. So let us see what more it has. Let us look at the different types of frequent patterns we have. The first one is a frequent item set. So what's a frequent item set? Say for example, you run a departmental store and then you tend to notice that a lot of people, they buy bread and milk together. So what does that tell you? If you place bread next to milk in your departmental store, your sales might boost up. The next one that we are looking at is called as subsequence. So what's a subsequence? How is this different from your frequent item set? Well, in frequent item sets, the order does not matter, whereas in subsequence, the order of items matter. So say for example, you tend to buy a printer after you buy a computer, right? You do not buy a printer straight away because that doesn't make a lot of sense. The next kind of frequent pattern we are looking at is a substructure. So if your data somehow has a tree structure or a graph structure imbibed in it, so that would be labeled as a substructure. Well, you have the definitions to look at on your screen. You can pause the video and then have a look at them. And now let's go look at the next slide. So frequent patterns are all fine, but where are we exactly using them? So there is a subfield in data mining called as association analysis, where we use these frequent patterns a lot. Well, what does association analysis deal with? Well, it deals with trying to find out relationships between different items in the data. What do I mean by that? Let us look at an example. So the representation that you're looking at on the screen is called as predicate calculus. So BICE here is a predicate. So this might be new to a lot of you people, and that is the reason I would like to spend a few minutes here. So this BICE is called as a predicate. Excuse me for the illegible writing. So this is a predicate. So this predicate, it connects the two parts which are present inside the braces. So what does this say? X buys a computer, and the right hand side, this says X buys a printer, and this arrow symbol you see here is called as an implication. So what does this entire sentence mean? It says that if X buys a computer, then X buys a printer. So it sort of builds a rule saying that, okay, if something happens, then something else also happens. But is this always true? Well, that depends. That depends on two things. They are called as support and confidence, the ones you see here. But what do they mean? What is support? What is confidence? Let us now try understanding them as well. Okay. So support is the percentages of cases where you see both computer and printer being bought out of all the transactions. So you trace out all the transactions present, and then you look for cases where computer and printer are present in that transaction. That is all support is. And then confidence, what is it? This is a subsequence. So over here you're looking at a frequent item set. So here you're looking at an item set that is frequent, whereas here you're looking at a subsequence. So in the case of confidence, you're looking at a subsequence. That is, you're looking at the cases where if someone has brought a computer, then what is the probability or what are the cases where he's buying a printer as well. Let me erase this. Okay. So these association rules, the one that you've seen here, let me grab the pen again. Okay. So these association rules, they can be of many types. The first one is what we have seen. It's called a single dimensional association rule. So if your association rule has only one predicate, as was the case here, over here the left hand side also had bias, right hand side also has bias. This is called as a single dimensional association rule. You can have multi-dimensional association rules as well. So say for example, if X buys a computer, then I can build another rule saying that X sells a mouse. So that is called as a multi-dimensional association rule. Now, what is the importance of minimum support threshold and minimum confidence threshold? So what do they mean? So minimum support threshold is the minimum support that has to be present to make sure that the rule stays inside association analysis. If this is not making any sense to you right now, it's fine. We're going to have a look at it. So what does that mean? Now we can build many of these rules. So this is just one rule. We can come up with so many rules, right? But not every rule is important. And then what is the criteria that you set for that? So say for example, this rule right here says it has a support of 1%. Now 1% is very small, right? So say I set a minimum support threshold of 5%. So if there is no support of 5%, I am not going to include that rule in my association analysis. Similarly, I can set a minimum confidence threshold. Like say if I say 75% is the confidence I require, and if it is not present, then I'll not include that into my final association analysis rules. So that is that.